The moral system of ancient Greece differed to a great extent from either of the preeminent religious principles of our contemporary world, and refusing to meet these moral principles could lead to extreme forms of divine punishment. On the basis of this, one of the most notorious culprits of Greek mythology was certainly Ixion, who was the king of the most ancient tribe of Thessaly. Probably the concept of dowry sounds very familiar even nowadays to most of you. However, back in ancient Greece its function was quite different than in later times. Dowry actually was paid to the potential father-in-law by the bridegroom, who hoped to gain the hand of the daughter in return. Ixion was an honorable fellow, so he married Larissa, the daughter of the king of Phocis. However, it seems that he quite intentionally happened to forget to pay the dowry for his father-in-law. The set of rules Ixion violated by his whimsical attitude was referred to by the Greeks themselves as xenia, in other words, the concept of hospitality. Historically, hospitality towards foreigners and guests was understood as a moral obligation that Ixion duly ignored. Ixion promised his father-in-law Dioneus some of his horses, yet he refused to fulfill his promise. In retaliation, the indignant Dioneus took the duty on himself to appropriate the horses of Ixion. So out of pure fury, he planned out a devious form of revenge. On the pretext of making peace with Dioneus, Ixion invited his father-in-law for dinner and afterwards proposed to introduce a special part of his palace to him in which there was a pit full of burning coal. While Dioneus bent over the pit, Ixion pushed him into it so he perished immediately. Possibly it does not strike you as a major surprise that killing a relative counted as a taboo even in ancient Greece, so this was actually the second time Ixion violated the rule of xenia, for which he was duly punished by the gods. He went mad. He could have been purified and acquitted of his sins by a purifying ritual performed by fellow citizens, yet they refused to do this, and we cannot blame them for that. It is not by coincidence that the figure of Zeus resembles the figure of Santa Claus to a great extent. The king of the gods took pity on Ixion and invited him to his celestial palace to dinner with him and Hera. Yet it seems that Ixion still have not learned anything from his previous mistakes, because he dared to initiate probably the most mischievous act mortals could conceive of in ancient Greece. That is, he tried to seduce Hera by being flirtatious, occasionally winking at her, and sending kisses to her. This was obviously enough to induce the wrath of Zeus, yet he was devious enough to pursue Ixion into a more tangible form of his intention, so he invented some trickery. He formed a cloud named Nathalie, which was the spirit image of Hera, and upon noticing it, Ixion instantly made love to it, so Zeus was able to prove that Ixion was sinful. In parentheses, I would like to call your attention to another mythical story that is much more widely known as the story of Ixion. Think of the story of the Minotaur. Pasiphae, the mother of the Minotaur, made love of an outstandingly attractive bull because her husband Minos refused to sacrifice it to Poseidon, and the outcome was the Minotaur, a half bull, half man figure. Now let's revert to the story of Ixion. While the most cruel and merciless form of punishment still awaited Ixion, Zeus hurled his thunderbolt on him and pinned him to a fiery wheel that keeps rolling until eternity. Zeus thought that the natural habitat of mortals is still a too nice place to live in for such an impertinent fellow as Ixion is, so he sent him down to the underworld, where he is still suffering upon that fiery wheel, according to the myth. Well, that was a not so well-known story out of the canon of Greek mythology that targets the topic of extreme forms of punishment, yet it is still certainly not the only one. What it shows us is that it is not by chance that gods of ancient Greece are often referred to as anthropomorphic. What it means is that they have the same feelings and emotions, and consequently are also capable of similarly mischievous and funny deeds as mortals do. This is why I think Greek mythology is extremely relatable even for the men of the 21st century. If you wish to learn more about punishment in ancient Greek mythology, as well as other funny stories featuring our beloved Greek divinities, stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like on it and hit that subscribe button so that you can get a notification each time a new video is released.